Oh, or that. I've got a feral cat. Healthy. Yeah, he is. He eats everything I put out, so I don't know. He comes back every day. The raccoons come too, but not when it's this cold. Them come, the motion will run away. They're getting wise to that. Mine is.
Feral cats. Okay, I guess it's close enough to time. It's a little after 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. I'll call this Board of Works meeting to order. Obviously, it's 9 o'clock on Tuesday, January 21st. Nancy, would you please start us out with a roll call?
I'd be happy to. 4 of our members are with us in the council chambers this morning. Andy Jones,
Present.
Mike Macklin,
Here?
Ronnie Davis,
Present.
Jamie Arcee.
Present.
We have one board member that's not with us this morning, and that's Rose Rivera, but we are a quorum. Thank you.
Fine, a couple reminders. Number one, if you would put your phones on silent mode, the board would appreciate it. Number two, a reminder that if you're online and wish to address the board, you have to have a camera. We have to be able to see you talking. It's a board rule. I believe it's a city rule. So haven't had any troubles that way, but those are our rules. Having said that, how about an approval of the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. No amendments? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Claims. Mr. President, I move that we approve the claims and allowance docket in the amount of $6,746,570.74, consisting of 38 pages, printed on January the 15th, 2025 at 9:16 a.m.
Second.
Motion and a second. Why, good morning.
Good morning, Erin Coons, Deputy Controller. We have our January trash services to Board and Waste Away for $199,335.21. That's for our regular claims. For our pre-approved, we have our Tolson Center lease payment for January 2025 for $350,000. And then we did a transfer of interest income from the general fund to capital outlay totaling $3 million. And then our American Rescue Plan claim totals is $30,115.38.
Of
I
the,
don't think it was on the backside of the standard docket.
all pretty standard claims.
All pretty standard. And the only thing I would add to what Ms. Coons has shared is that the $3 million transfer from the general fund into the capital outlay represents the second half of what the council had appropriated during the budget process for us to be able to transfer interest income into the outlay. That was
That's
$3
just for
million.
general capital project.
Yep, that's for future funding of projects.
Quick question. Aaron, do you know when our contract expires for the trash and recycle service with Heimco? Is that coming up?
I thought it was, but I'm not sure. I can check.
I know they've changed owners. I just wondered.
Well, they did.
Yeah.
information?
Our contract expires at the end of this year, and we're currently working on documents for a new bid. Tori Irwin Public Works, sorry.
Thanks, Tori.
Thanks, Tori. I thought it was Sue.
Questions for Aaron or Jamie? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving claim and allowance docket totaling $6,746,570.74 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Have a motion to approve the Board of Works minutes for the January 7th meeting?
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. Any changes? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
President, I move that we approve Resolution 25-R-02, the City of Elkhart Board of Public Works, SRF, Loan Program Signatory Authorization Resolution.
Second.
Motion and a second. Hi, Tori.
Morning, Tori Irwin Public Works. This is a standard practice, as we have done with every IFA SRF loan. We have to have a signatory authorization resolution. This one will cover all of the loan applications that we're going to do for this calendar year of 2025, both on the wastewater and drinking water side. So that includes Oakland Phases C and D, CSO 13 sewer separation, lead services, and any capital projects on the water side that we may begin.
Okay. Questions for Tori? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Mr. President, I move that we approve the bid documents and grant permission to advertise bid number 25-04, Fire Station number 6.
Motion and a second. Good morning, Mr. Schaefer.
Morning, Jeff Schaefer, Assistant City Engineer. Too cold. Very briefly, this project is pretty self-explanatory. We are relocating Fire Station number 6 from the intersection of Bristol Street and Oslo Road, where it is very tight and where the current building does not allow for the apparatus that the fire department needs and is currently using. Relocating that to Ada Drive, the station will also allow for an ambulance to be staged at this fire station as well. This obviously moves it closer to the new industrial development on the northeast side of town, as well as the new residential development, while still providing the coverage we need in the parts closer to downtown. I can answer any questions you have.
Questions for Jeff?
Jeff, first question would be, the current station currently, as I understand, has one bay. Will the new station be a 2 or 3 bay station?
It's a good question.
I want to think that it might be 3.
It's a 3-bay station, yes.
So that'll give us enough growth for future expansion. I realize you've been working outside of the road portion of your job description for this, so we appreciate your expertise coming into this area along with the Public Safety Center, and recognize it adds additional burden to you. So thank you for that, and for working with our police state and our fire department.
No problem. Thank you, sir.
Just quick, what's going to happen to the existing parcel where the fire station, that's going to be sold, or you have an idea?
I don't think the council and the administration have made a final decision yet. My expectation will be that we'll dispose of the property, but that'll be up to the council and the administration.
Need another gas station. That'd be 3 on that corner, right?
It'll be 3.
Oh, there, yeah, that'd be nice.
Dollar General.
Would do well there.
Other questions for Jeff? Seeing none, all those in favor of granting permission to advertise bid number 25-4 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Mr. President, I move that we approve the bid documents and grant permission to advertise bid number 25-06, 2025 ADA funded curb ramp replacement project.
Motion and a second. Jeff?
This is our annual ADA-funded project for curb ramps, which focuses on high-traffic walking areas near schools and that sort of thing, not areas where we have done resurfacing. That's the next project. You are probably aware, you may be aware, the council increased the appropriation this year for ADA funding. So that has increased the budget for this particular project and is going to allow us to do more curb ramps and more complex projects. So we appreciate the council's effort on that and willingness to help us out with this particular initiative.
Is it anticipated that money other than curb ramp or projects other than curb ramp type projects will be done with that money this year?
Yes. We recently, I don't know if you recall, a consultant, DLZ, recently completed an evaluation of all of our buildings, public areas of our buildings. And so one of our initiatives this year that we budgeted for internally with those funds is to start getting rid of some ADA barriers within some of our public spaces and buildings as well. So that's going to be a big initiative this year. We also are working on we have purchased our own grinding equipment for sidewalks.
Great.
But we need a trailer to help move that around, and so we're working on that initiative as well. We had previously contracted out grinding for about $60,000 a year. We were able to acquire a grinder for less than $20,000. So looking forward
to
to
street department.
That'll be a street department work. Yep, and they're excited to get started on that. So a few different things that we're doing with this additional funds, not all going to curb ramps, kind of allowing us to expand our efforts into some different areas.
And I guess the only thing I would add is that while this is ADA is federal related, this is all local money that is being used to fund this project. There are no federal funds or state funds as being used as part of this, so it's all edit.
Jeff, what's the widest section that can grind? Do you know offhand?
It's more when it's
Sounds
more
pretty
for-
big.
Yeah, well, it's more for trip hazard removal. So it's more the difference in the sidewalk elevation, and it's about 1.5 to 2 inches that we can grind. Once we grind more than 2 inches, the concrete underneath is usually only 2 or 3 inches thick, and then it'll just crack.
So, but the unit itself is how wide is it? How much of an area?
It's a drum.
Okay,
That's
so it's a push behind.
Yeah,
type.
exactly.
Okay, gotcha.
Yep.
Something you drive.
Yeah, no, it's a drum
Okay.
grinder. It's hand operated.
Okay.
Other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor of granting permission to advertise 2506 signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Mr. President, I move that we approve the bid documents and grant permission to advertise bid number 25-07, 2025 Street Department Resurfacing Curb Ramp Replacement Project.
Second.
Motion and second.
So the difference here is this comes out of local road and street motor vehicle highway funds, and these are the curb ramps that are following the street department as they do their resurfacing in neighborhoods. So under ADA requirements, both at the federal and state level, as we resurface a street, we are obligated to bring the curb ramps into compliance adjacent to those streets. So rather than our concrete crews focusing on that, which is not really their specialty, we have a contractor, for lack of a better term, follow behind them and do these curb ramps.
Questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Mr. President, I move that we approve the bid documents and grant permission to advertise bid number 25-08, 2025 contract paving project number 1.
Second.
Motion and a second.
If you recall, we did receive a Community Crossings matching grant. We actually received 2 of them last year. One, excuse me, which was used on Beardsley and Middlebury Street and some of our industrial park streets that are complete. And then later in the year, we applied for a second round of funding and received money for Bristol Street and the Park 6 Industrial Park. So this project will resurface Bristol Street from Cassopolis Street to Oslo Road. So basically all of our asphalt portion of Bristol Street. We won't be doing the concrete portion, as well as the Park 6 Industrial Park, which is Park 6 Drive, Park 6 Court, Lear Drive, and Lear Court. We had hoped to include that in the original project, but basically our costs were such that our actual funds that we requested from the state were a lot less, so we could go back for more money for the second grant, if that makes any sense at all. So that's what this project is bringing a contractor on board to do that resurfacing.
Jeff, not that I would know this personally, but I've heard that that section of Bristol Street, certainly from Johnson to Cass, has a lot of problems. A lot of those areas, are we looking, is this just mill and fill? Are we going to try and repair some of the?
Right now, this is just mill and resurface.
Jeff, regarding the CCMG program, is that going to continue to be a 2-time-a-year award from the state?
That's my expectation.
As far as you know? Okay.
Yes, sir. Sorry. Yeah, that's my expectation. The actually next round of grants are due on the 31st. And we're looking at doing something a little bit different. We're looking at replacing the concrete pavement on Stevens Avenue and replacing that in its entirety with asphalt pavement, as we've tried to do a lot of other places. Concrete's great until it's not anymore. Yeah. And then it's really tough for us to deal with those streets. So yes, still twice a year, one application due in January, one application due in July, with a total grant of $1.5 million. And because of
Each or together?
Together, total.
Okay.
Yep, a cumulative. Yep. And because we are the size of our city, we are a 50-50 match still. If you're a smaller city, smaller county, it's a 75-25 split. So we're still 50-50. My understanding from what I've read in the media and other places and heard from NDOT is the program still has the support of the legislature, and they expect it to continue forward. So I think it's something we can continue to tap into.
Great. Yeah, I know that section of Stevens that you're looking at, including as part of the next round, is extremely old, if I recall from previous conversations, that concrete is old, not able to be milled in the same way that we did with Johnson here recently to be able to offset some of those costs. So this will be a complete reconstruction if it gets approved. Well, I guess we're going to move forward with it, but on the hopes of CCMG helping to fund it, it'll be a complete reconstruction, correct?
Yes, sir. Yep. Yeah, it's a granite-based concrete, so you might as well be hitting granite. So yeah, if you try and hit that with a mill, the concrete wins. So yeah, our best option is to saw cut it out. In this case, there's already a joint between the curbs or the gutter and the street, so that should be relatively easy to remove, famous last words. And then we will replace it with full depth asphalt.
Curbs, then I'm hearing, will remain.
That's our hope. That's our expectation. At the intersections, we'll have to rebuild the curbs, but in the main line runs, the curbs all appear to be in pretty good shape.
Perfect. Thanks, Jeff.
All those in favor, granting permission to advertise bid number 2508, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Mr. President, I move that we approve the amended award of bid number 25-01, the street materials 2025 bid, to the various contractors who submitted the lowest responsive bids at the unit prices included in their respective bids as presented in the bid tabulation included as part of this memorandum.
Second.
In a second.
Very quickly, there was one bid that inadvertently was left off the bid tabulation, mostly for aggregate materials. So we are adding that contractor in as an award. There are some situations where they were low on it, so that will be our preferred purchase. And so that was a mistake on the staff's part, and we just like to correct that mistake.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Mr. President, I move that we approve the revocable right-of-way permit for perpendicular parking in Alma Street at Lind Gas and Equipment, subject to the conditions suggested by the staff in the board memorandum.
Motion and a second. Jeff?
Yes, so in July of this year, while running around the city, we noticed that there was concrete being placed in the right-of-way of Alma Street, just north of Mishawaka Street. Reached out to the property owner. That used to be Mittler Supply, then it was Praxair, now it's Lind Gas. And had a discussion with them about what was happening because they were both replacing a driveway as well as paving some perpendicular parking spaces partially in the right-of-way of Alma Street. Now, there had always been perpendicular parking there in the gravel, but obviously placing the pavement in the right-of-way requires driveway permit, excavation permit, and even replacing gravel with concrete, we need to take a look at everything. So we've gone back and forth a little bit with them through the end of last year. They did submit a tech review application. We did review some plans, and we've landed on the conclusion that this is somewhat similar. I don't know if you recall earlier this year, or last year, I'm sorry, we did a similar approval for Moyer Electric in the field house and 19th Street area. Now, that was some concrete we think went down about 10 years ago. Moyer Electric was doing in addition to the building, so we asked them to kind of bring that perpendicular parking into compliance by getting a right-of-way permit. Our theory on this is that the reason for the right-of-way permit is basically the second page of that application, the indemnification process, the understanding that people are parking in the street, partially in the street at their own risk. And so we think that's important to protect the city's interest and also make the owner aware that this is not a normal situation, but it's something because there's historical reasoning here that we're willing to consider. So there are a couple conditions listed in there. I don't know if the applicant's here today or not. We did receive a right-of-way permit application, and it's partially my mistake. I didn't fully review it until about 2 weeks before this meeting, or about a week before this meeting, 2 weeks before this meeting, as I was preparing this document. I realized it had been signed by their contractor, not by the property owner. And obviously, this will need to be signed by the property owner. And there are some other conditions we're suggesting in there as well as part of this process, mostly also having to do with some sort of statement that if there are drainage problems on Alma Street, it will be the responsibility of Lindy Gas to repair and not the city. So that's our suggestion. Again, I don't know if the applicant's here today to discuss. Because we haven't yet received the actual signed revocable permit application, if you feel it's best to table this to next week until we get the signed document, that's fine. If you'd like to approve this with conditions, that's fine. The situation is already in place. It's the middle of winter, so I will leave it to the board's discretion how you would like to move forward on this item.
You don't expect a problem with them with the signature?
I have talked to the manager, Mark McLaughlin at Lindy. He's working with his corporate side to get it. I believe he is doing everything in good faith to get it done. My only concern would be if he takes it to his corporate, which is, I believe, in Connecticut, and their attorneys start taking a look at it and go, we're not going to sign away those rights. So that's my only concern. I will say Mr. McLaughlin has worked in very good faith. And so I believe he's going to continue to do so. It would be whether he runs into some corporate issues.
Okay. Yeah.
Corporate doesn't always appreciate local
That's
rules.
fine. We can definitely, I will follow up with them and we can bring it back in February.
But
And
go ahead, Mike.
could you look at redoing your application, your revocable permit application, and correct the board's names.
I did notice that, yes. We will get that cleaned up.
Okay, great, thank you.
Jeff, the one question that I guess I had a couple questions regarding their infringement or encroachment on the right-of-way. How much of it is really entering into the roadway itself versus, what we would commonly in residential areas describe as the tree lawn component?
So the cars themselves are not in the traveled way.
Okay.
The traveled way is clear. The tree lawn component there, the right-of-way outside the road is probably about 10 or 15 feet. The cars are probably half and half, and they're a couple feet outside the traveled way. Personally, I am still not a proponent of that. My concern is all people backing out into streets. Now, I back out into a city street every day out of a driveway. The difference here is backing out of a line of cars when a driver can't necessarily see you. On the other hand, this is Alma Street, probably less than 400 cars a day. So you can kind of see what we balance. We will continue to not be a proponent, but we also understand there are situations like this that have some history, and we're willing to work with property owners on them.
Thank you. Are they required to stripe this at all, or is it just barren concrete where the revocable permit is perpendicular or 90 degrees to the curb, but they would be able to pull in parallel or at an angle or otherwise? I would presume.
That's an excellent question, and I don't know if they actually striped it. I will verify that,
Okay.
and if not, that would be a reasonable condition as well.
Okay, cool. All right. Any other questions, I think, Mike? All right, motion to table.
Okay, second.
Motion to table, all those in favor of tabling signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Mr. President, I move that we approve the revised driveway permit application documents and set the bond amounts as recommended by the engineering staff.
Second.
Motion and a second.
Excuse me. This is basically a refresh of our driveway permit application. So what we did is we looked at the application, and over the last couple of years, some pitfalls that we see, we added some language to the application to take care of those pitfalls. We also tried to realign the bond amounts with things that made sense, especially looking at the difference between a driveway that might be being done by a resident on their own versus a commercial driveway or something larger, that sort of thing. The way the ordinance reads is the minimum bond amount is $100, and then the bond is supposed to reflect the total cost of the improvement. Our concern with that is, in some of these situations, the total cost of the improvement, if a resident is doing it themselves, would be an extremely high bond amount. And most of these residents are cutting a personal check, handing it to us, and then we're returning that payment back to them. We still want to collect the bonds. We think that's important because if nothing else, people call in for their inspections. And so the bond is serving the purpose of making sure the driveways are inspected so we can do an inspection, bring it into compliance. And so I think the bonds are important for that as much as anything else. And so that's what we tried to balance that out a little bit with reflecting that. Then, like I said, we also we added some language about making sure inspections were called in for, that sort of thing, that hadn't necessarily been on the permit application, but now it's all very straightforward. So that was kind of the reason behind this, just kind of a bit of a refresh to clean some things up. That's the purpose of bringing it in front of you.
Jeff, approximately, did all of these bond amounts change, and by how much?
Sure. The small residential driveway stayed the same, $200. The amount that got larger was a residential driveway that was over 29 feet, the big residential driveways, because again, those are normally being done by contractors, new houses, that sort of thing. The commercial driveways, the smaller, we actually kind of added a or I'm sorry, we increased the 2 commercial driveways up from 2,500 to 3,500.
Okay.
So some minor revisions, nothing that significant. Trying to, in fact, I think, I apologize, we actually reduced the small driveway, I think, from 300 to 200. So reducing at the small end, increasing at the large end, we think that makes more sense based on the groups of people we're seeing doing these things.
Cool.
And you said you also altered the old application to put some language in for inspection?
Yeah, first of all, you'll see the first line there, pre-pour inspection required for all sidewalks and driveways placed in the city right-of-way. That is the most important thing, because unfortunately, we get a lot of people calling for inspections when they've already poured concrete. And then if there's a problem, they have to tear it out. When we do pre-pour inspections, as you know, we're blessed with very skilled inspectors who can inspect. Unfortunately, he's in Florida today, or I would even talk about him more, but now I'm mad at him because he's in Florida. We're blessed with both Mr. Lucas and Robert Smith as well, who's learning. We can inspect the formwork and give people a go-ahead before the concrete's even poured, which is obviously really important both for the city and for the applicant. We also simplified the approvals at the bottom. There used to be a drainage approval and a traffic approval and an engineering approval, and no, we don't have 3 people to sign these. So we're just doing the one signature. The driveway standards themselves remain the same. We haven't adopted any new driveway standards. We're still comfortable with what we have. So yeah, that's a difference. We also added a line about who posted the bond, who requested the application, just some simple internal housekeeping things, so when we go to return the bond, we make sure it goes back to the right person.
That you don't dictate minimum, or am I missing it? Minimum concrete thickness for the residential and commercial, smaller commercial drives, is that right?
That's in the lower portion on the second page, is the concrete thicknesses for residential and commercial. At the bottom portion of the driveway.
Is that the 6-inch Class A?
Oh, I'm
with
sorry.
3 inches of aggregate?
I thought you were giving 4 examples. Now I get it.
No problem.
Any other questions for Jeff?
Just one. Why are the radiuses, flares differently configured for residential and commercial?
Mostly because of truck turning movements. So residential driveways obviously are mostly seeing cars. Cars have a turning radius of about 15 feet. And so even a little 5x5 flare, for most people, they can make that maneuver whether they're backing in or backing out. For commercial driveways, we're expecting some sort of truck traffic. Trucks have a radius, semis have a radius of 45 feet. Now our flare doesn't match that, but a truck can usually enter a commercial driveway that's 25 or 30 feet wide with that 25-foot radius flare. So that's the biggest difference. And when that truck turns, the trailer trails it differently than if you had it straight across. If we did go straight across with commercial driveways, which we could do, and the state does that on some industrial driveways, it would also add more cost because there's more material when you cut the straight angle versus do the radius. But the radius is really what we need more so than the straight angle.
Other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving these changes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Mr. President, I move that we ratify partial payment request number 19 in the amount of $492,439 to C&E Excavating from the SRF loan WW221-62005 and $70 from loan DW222-32001 for construction on the Oakland Avenue Force Main Phase A project.
Motion and a second. They've been working?
Jason Semnick, project manager. No, this is for December work.
What's our expected completion date?
Our expected completion date for the close of the project would be like November-ish of this year. So
For A?
Yeah. Yeah, for Project A. They actually just sent me the schedule today so they're planning on starting in about a month, mid-February, and working through middle of November at this point, so.
And I've avoided the area. Is Indiana Avenue closed?
Sort of. We've been asking NIPSCO to relocate their lines for 3 years now, and they waited until the road was opened back up to start doing so. And we're hoping that they'll be out of our way by the time we start in a month. So, yeah, the road was closed for 9 months last year, and they waited for us to open it back up before they got out there to work.
All righty then. All those in favor of this partial payment for Oakland Avenue Force Main Phase A, SA 7878, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Mr. President, I move that we accept and place on file the water utility monthly report of operations for the month of December 2024.
Second.
Motion and a second. No violations or excursions from the rules? Does anybody know?
None noted.
There were none.
Okay, thanks. Ready, all those in favor accepting placing on file this MRO signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Mr. President, I move that we approve the 2025 transfer schedule for water, wastewater, and stormwater utilities.
Second.
Motion and a second.
Good morning, Tim Reeser, Assistant Director. I have here
What
to
is
answer
it?
any questions. The transfer schedule is what's going to allow the utility to fund its expenses for the calendar year 2025. We'll transfer out of revenue into the respective funds to pay for our monthly expenses. So you will see some differences between last year's. We're not going to fund sewer insurance as of right now. There's a surplus in the fund that we're hoping that will match our budget number for 2025, so we'll reevaluate in June or July based on revenues coming in from the utility bills. If there's going to be a larger surplus, we'll transfer that back.
So all of the billing goes into a revenue fund and then it has to be reappropriated out to spend it?
To operating
transferred it.
capital, yeah.
Okay.
Tim, you had mentioned that the sewer insurance fund has its own revenue source that's
Correct.
part of, that's included as part of the forecast. Are there other funds here that we're transferring from the operating funds into the other funds? And I guess out of revenue into the operating or otherwise that also have direct revenue components? Meaning, is billing going into any of these other funds other than just the sewer insurance fund?
I don't believe so.
Where do the assessments go?
The assessments go into the capital or the main extension funds.
Oh, okay. They
So,
don't need to be transferred. You spend directly out of those funds.
yeah,
So I would, does stormwater have its own revenue source outside of the operations? I would think so.
the revenue stream for stormwater comes from the user fees that are collected by the county.
And then they send us a check every
They do
6
two
months or something?
annual disbursements with the the spring and fall property tax collections.
Okay.
So we just received the fall tax collection in December, so that was just receipted in.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. My only recommendation would be that we just streamline this and include it as part of the budget process going forward if we have enough information to make it happen. I think it helps to keep the whole process clean, and then when we're looking at the budget piece, it's including all of these components, and it reduces some of your extra work here at year end, at the beginning of year.
Absolutely. We can look at that for 25. Just know that when we do that, the fund balances may not be accurate due to the closing of.
Yeah, forecasting is forecasting, right?
Yep.
But at least if we have to come back and request amendments, additional changes to it, which has not been uncommon anyway, so.
Yep. Thank you.
Righty then, all those in favor of the transfer schedule signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Mr. President, I move that we approve the client satisfaction offer and grant authority for Tim Reeser to sign on the board's behalf regarding the global payments contract.
Motion and a second. I was struggling with trying to understand what all the terminology meant here.
So as you guys may know, we have a contract with Global Payments to process all of our e-check and credit card transactions for the utility billing online component. We were notified with our December statement that our rates had increased significantly. So when we went, I reached out to Global to discuss the increase, and it was discovered that we were removed from the utility payment program, which affords the utility a heavily discounted processing fee as it pertains to credit card transactions by the major vendors. And so after discussions with them and their evaluation, they put us back onto the utility payment program, and they just require our signature to amend the contract to put us back on that schedule beginning in February. So we will pay the increased rates on our credit card processing fees for the month of January, but based on their calculation, this will we'll be saving about $300,000 a year in credit card fees by switching back to this program. And this only affects the utilities merchant account through OpenEdge or Global Pay. It does not affect any of the other city departments. They're going to continue to pay the rates that they originally signed up for.
Because they're not utilities.
Correct. So Visa, MasterCard, Discover all offer heavily discounted rates for the credit card processing fees for publicly owned utilities. And the only way that we can get those rates is if we don't pass them along to the customer. And since we absorb those credit card fees, we're subject and afforded the opportunity to enroll in those programs. And so we get those discounts through Visa, MasterCard, and Discover. I don't believe American Express offers such a program, but the three major ones do. So
We take American Express.
we do online, we do not in person.
Are you going to have to do this each year, or do you think?
I'm going to. I think it's much like customer retention at Comcast. They just raise your bill till you can't stand it anymore, and you have to call them. So
Yeah, I guess based on that, I'm assuming then that this had an evergreen clause that allowed for them to make changes to the contract pricing without our acceptance?
I believe that we were just reclassified for some reason, and I don't know if it was a reclassification when other departments came on board, that we just reclassified to something else other than a utility. So certain industries pay different rates for credit card fees based on the market. And so I think that we were just aligned with another department, and they lumped all the city's contracts together and not just the ones that were enrolled. So I'm not positive what happened, but this letter is what they've offered to re-enroll us and reduce our rates.
And I guess going forward, does this have an evergreen clause that allows for them to continue? And this may be more of a Maggie question since she reviewed it, I assume by the reference to legal, but will this continue to renew automatically at whatever rate they choose, and we have to be diligent at our monitoring of that, or will we, like Mike had said, will we need to take action annually to continue to be enrolled in this program?
Previously, this was the first time they'd raised our rates. I think we've been a customer of Global for the last 3 or 4 years with their online. And this was the first increase that we were notified of. But I believe we'd have to go look at the original contract that we signed with them and not just this amendment to see what the terms and conditions of that contract are.
All right, thank you.
Good work, good catch. Are we like the IRS where we give people who? That's the next action you'd like to implement? Okay.
That's right.
All righty. All those in favor of approving the client satisfaction offer and giving Tim Reeser authority to sign on the city's behalf signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Mr. President, I move that we declare an emergency for the January 7th, 2025 Hubbard Avenue sewer main repair.
Second.
Motion and a second. We had a street collapse. Who's here?
Yeah.
Who's online? I'm sorry.
Oh, great.
Marty, can you hear us?
I think
We can't hear
Yeah.
you.
Nancy will need to unmute you, and then you'll need to unmute yourself.
Thank you. Martin Offsinger, Public Works and Utilities. Yeah, we had a sewer line collapse, a sinkhole apparent on Hubbard adjacent to Oakland. We got out there and saw that, the upstream manholes were surcharged and we needed to get the sewer line repaired.
And when they went down, what did they find? Broken clay tile?
Yep, quite a bit of collapsed clay pipe in the ground. It's pretty deep, so yeah, I think it was 15 feet or so to get to it. Got a hold of C&E, they got it fixed. They're still waiting for some weather to where they can restore the roadway, and then they should be all wrapped up.
Thank you. Other questions for Martin? Seeing none, thank you. All those in favor of declaring the emergency for Hubbard signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Mr. President, I move that we authorize a contract with Innovative Spaces to replace the floor in the laboratory for a total of $27,004.
Motion and a second. Good morning, Mr. Deegan.
Morning, Board. So this is a request for authorization to enter into a contract with Innovative Spaces to replace the floor in the lab. Floor in the lab was put in back in the early 80s. I think it may be one of the last spaces in the admin building that hasn't had the floor replaced. A lot of the tile is like chipping up and it's in really poor condition. So this would cover the main lab itself, two side rooms, and then the entryway from the south side or the north side door into the lab. It would also cover the removal of the tile and the adhesive, and then replacing it with an epoxy style floor. We received 3 quotes, and then Innovative Spaces provided the lowest quote.
This will be epoxy as opposed to any kind of a tile.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And was this in your budget?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
It was in the budget.
Are you gonna have to? Are they going to do it over the weekend? Or are you going to have to shut down operations?
It's going to be tricky. As you know, Mike, and maybe the rest of the board doesn't know, the lab goes 7 days a week in the summertime, 6 days a week in the wintertime. So we're going to have to do some juggling, maybe like going to occur over like a week, and we'll have to shut off certain portions of the lab to kind of keep it running. So yeah, it's going to be a tricky project.
Great. Sure, it really needs it now. I mean, 80s, it's only 60 years ago.
Yeah.
I don't know, 40 years ago.
40
What
years.
is it? 60 years ago. Great, thank you, Dara.
Thank you.
Other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Mr. President, I move that we approve Resolution 25-R-1, a resolution of the Board of Public Works of the City of Elkhart, Indiana, supporting the amendment to the wastewater utility use ordinance.
Hey, Brian, what are we doing?
Good morning, Brian Kress, Regulatory Compliance Manager. Every so often, we are obligated under federal law to review our local limits, basically the limits on pollutants from significant industrial users that apply to all of our significant industrial users. The numbers it's basically just math, the numbers are based on the amount of pollutants we have coming from residential sources, and then we basically look and see what else, how much else of the pollutant we can take in from non-residential sources. We divide that up among the major industries and then basically say, hey, here's what our local limits have to be to make sure that our plant works correctly and that we can follow all of our own discharge limits out to the St. Joseph River from our wastewater treatment plant. There are only a couple of the pollutants changed, the local limits for only a couple of pollutants changed. We did take the opportunity to fix some structural issues with the table as well while we're in there. And this is basically just a resolution saying that, the board supports us going to the council and getting the ordinance changed.
Do the industries get advance notice of this?
We will provide advance notice to the industries of the change. It is one of those things where, yes, of course, as a matter of good customer service, we'll give them the notice, but it's not anything that the industries can come and ask us to not do because we are just required to. But yes, as a purpose of good customer service, we will share this with the industries.
Because I don't want them to get penalized will this
We will
supersede the numbers in their existing permits?
What we will probably want to do is after the council approves the ordinance, we'll want to come in and just do a mass modification to everyone's permit just to make sure that all those numbers are the same. I do believe it would self-implement into the permits as currently written, but we should probably go ahead and update all their permits just as a matter of form.
I'd like you to do that the next month.
Just for the record, we have gone through all of the existing permits and SIUs, and we do not believe that the new reduced limits on the 3 pollutants will impact any of the existing customers.
But did you say reduced limits, Tori?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
That
So by
it lowers the level.
Got
so
it.
it actually
Yes.
makes
increases
it
the
more restrictive. Yeah.
Yes, more restrictive, yes.
That's what I was going to.
Sorry.
Make sure that I was understanding. And I guess when will this be presented to council? Will this be the next meeting or one of the, nearer first quarter meetings?
The first reading is in February, and then the second and third will be in March.
Okay.
The second and third will be the first meeting in March.
Okay.
All those in favor of this resolution signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Mr. President, I move that we issue Continental Industries its 5-year industrial wastewater discharge permit and renew permit number 2003-01. All right. Steve, what's up?
Good morning, Board. Steve Brown, Public Works. This is a standard 5-year permit renewal for Continental Industries. They are one of our metal finishers here in Elkhart. They produce heating, ventilation, and air conditioning registers. They've been great corporate citizens, and pretreatment staff recommends this renewal.
Great. Just for my own purposes, when we're looking at the permit numbers, is the first number the year in which they were originally given their number, the permit, or issued the permit? So they've been around for quite some time, given that they're a 2003 permit number.
Correct, yes.
And, all right. I guess, board, any other questions or comments regarding it? All right, seeing none, all those in favor of issuing Continental Industries its 5-year industrial wastewater discharge permit and renewing permit number 2003-01 indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Up here. I'll entertain a motion to find the Simonton Lake Conservancy District in violation of.
You skipped earth movers.
Oh, I did?
Yep.
Oh, I guess it wasn't, maybe my packet is out,
Simonton Lake next.
Earth movers should be next.
oh,
What is?
okay.
Earth movers?
Earth movers,
you're right.
oh, yeah, I don't have that.
There's no asterisk next to it, that's why.
Yeah. Let me,
Or no bullet point next to it.
okay, yeah, I don't think it's here in my packet. All right, so let's entertain a motion for the, to renew industrial wastewater discharge permit for number 2009-01 for Earth Movers landfill.
Second.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Steve?
This is another standard 5-year permit renewal for earth movers. They receive leachate from their on-site landfill and also from Prairie View landfill. They've been great corporate citizens as well.
Right. So no real issues, and given that this is with the, technically with the county, correct? Or?
Yes, yes.
Excuse my absence, Earth Movers isn't with the county. Earth Movers is not part of the county landfill, are they?
No. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I misunderstood your question. Sorry. Yeah, it's 2 different landfills. Earth movers is separate. Yeah.
Got it.
This is the one on the south side of the landfill road.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. Yeah. And the county operates on the north side?
Yep.
Right, all those in favor of approving the 5-year industrial wastewater discharge permit renewal for Earth Movers landfill for permit number 2009-01 indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. All right, Simonton.
Lake.
Mr. President, I move that we find Simonton Lake Conservancy District in violation of the wastewater use ordinance and assign a penalty of $1,500.
Motion and a second. SKH2S, huh?
Yes, sir. H2S. Pretreatment staff conducted monthly H2S monitoring for Simonton Lake in October 2024. The dates were October 26th through the 28th. The H2S result of 58 exceeded the maximum limit. And this is, unfortunately, Simonton's second H2S exceedance since the closure of their previous consent order. The recommended penalty for this is $1,500.
Is this our monitoring or was this your own monitoring? How often do you monitor Simonton Lake and the other areas that have had historical H2S problems?
We monitor those sites, including Simonton monthly.
Okay.
That's just if everything goes as planned. Sometimes we have to send our loggers out for recalibration, and it takes some time to get those items back, but routinely on a monthly basis.
And, I mean, I see Steve here. Okay, well, let's talk to Simonton Lake first. Anybody from Simonton Lake wish to address the board? I'm sorry, Simonton Lake Conservancy District.
Steve Grubb, Midwest Contract Operations, representing Simonton Lake. Yeah, we were self-monitoring during that time, and on a couple of the exceedances, we did show the exceedance, but on a couple of the other readings, our data didn't match up with pre-treatments, where on the one they'd had a 58, our meter was only showing, had it right here, was only showing 29, and there was another one where it was 21 parts per million, and our unit, before it had been installed, had just come back from the rep where it had been calibrated, and then I had bump tested it before I inserted it, and my readings were fine, and then when I took it out of service and put another monitor in its place, it was still reading within tolerances.
Are you monitoring the same location they are?
Yep. Yeah, right now we're currently monitoring in the city's manhole. We're still looking at possibility of trying to get our own manhole put in upstream a little bit of the city's manhole where our line runs. It's right there in front of Fred's in the right-of-way right there. According to our as-built, our line's like 20 feet off of the curb. And so we're hoping to maybe have a manhole put in that area if possible. I've talked with the city about it, and I know I have to contact the state since that's a state highway and verify whether that's just the right of way or if we should have a utility easement in there. We've had some issues.
Oh, you guys, yeah.
Yeah. And so we're looking into that. But one of the other concerns that the board has is there's also 2 other lines come into that manhole. One of them is an industrial user. I'm not sure where the smaller one comes from. And I know in the past, my former employer had me go out and look at their lift station at Thermodyne there because they'd had some issues with it. And my supervisor at the time and I went out and looked at their lift station because they thought the lift station belonged to the city. And we told them that it didn't belong to the city, but they did have a problem. And it was pretty nasty looking at that time. And I don't know, how well they maintain it. I've seen when we were doing the videoing of the sewer line during the consent order, did see, discharge coming out of there. But, I don't know if they could be contributing to this. I mean, I know some of the readings for the H2S do occur at the same time we're pumping, and then there are a couple that don't, especially on my meter. They don't correlate with our pumping. I have a data logger that logs every time a pump runs and for how long and what the flow rate is. And so there's a couple of readings that don't necessarily correspond with my pumping. So I'm not sure if, that other industry could be contributing to our H2S problem or not. That's another reason we're hoping to maybe put in our own manhole, so it's just our stream that's being monitored.
I'm sorry, I'm concerned with the differences of the 2 meters. Have you guys tried to run a parallel test to see if there's a problem with 1 meter or the other?
Well, I was monitoring the same time that they were monitoring, but,
I mean, since then.
oh, since then, no, I don't know. How often do you send yours out? Once every 6 months. Once every 6 months, okay. And also, one of the things we're looking at, because when we went through the compliance order, we had our supplier for the chemical that we used. We're looking at, because we only pump anywhere from 8 to 10 times a day. There's times where it's laying in the wet well and also laying in the force main. I mean, I monitor the H2S at the wet well, and the highest peak I've ever gotten within the last year was 0.8 parts per million. But then they were saying, where it lays in the force main, that the chemical, we don't put enough in. So during the, consent order, when we were doing our testing, we increased our dosage rate, which seemed to take care of it. But now we've had some other issues that have popped up. And so I contacted our engineers at Evoqua to see if we might be able to benefit from actually putting the chemical in at the lift station, because that was part of the reason why they had us increase our pumping rate, was because of the lag time.
This is a pressure sewer system, so it's pretty much all force mains coming to your lift station.
Right. But then, because I remember that up at Ontawa, theirs is a lot longer force main, but they put their chemical in at the lift station the last time I saw that site. And so that's one of the things that the engineers are looking at, to see if maybe we would benefit from in putting our chemical in at the wet well, to see if that would maybe help with our downstream problem, because it appears to be that's where our problem is, that 1,200 feet that we've got from the lift station to that manhole.
Is that all force main, or is that part gravity from the lift station to the manhole?
It's probably part gravity the last couple hundred feet, because I've never seen, when I've looked at that manhole when we're pumping, because we're only allowed 200 gallons a minute, and that 6-inch line, even after we had just had it cleaned, is only half to 2/3 of a pipe coming out, so.
Well, I appreciate what all Simonton Lake has done.
Yeah,
They've worked hard at solving this problem. My concern isn't so much right now with this, well, it is with this violation. My concern is if you both have good meters, why there's a 100% difference in readings.
Mike, as you'll recall from the extensive H2S testing that we have done, depending on what vertical level the sensors are picking up, you're going to have different concentrations of H2S.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Tori.
And Brian has something else to say.
It can also depend on the sampling rate for the H2S monitor. So if they're not, so like, for example, on a data logger, it can sample every 1 second, or you can maybe have ones that sample every hour. That could be a possible source of this. So like, if, I don't know how often yours is sampling.
Right now, ours is set up to do every 10 minutes.
So every 10 minutes, and so if ours is not on the, even if ours was on the, if ours is every 5 minutes, the data just may not quite line up, and so you can see spikes with the hydrogen sulfide levels in there. We are concerned about spikes in hydrogen sulfide. Part of the reason why our limit is at that 50 parts per million is because that is immediately dangerous to life and health. Should we ever have to have a worker enter in the system, we do, of course, monitor before anybody would go into it, but that is a contributing factor, of course, along with hydrogen sulfide's impact on corrosion of pipes.
Steve, how often does Simonton Lake, do you monitor at the manhole?
I've been monitoring
Every day?
continuously. We have a long-term monitor. It's the same brand. It's Otologger. I know you've got a different one too, but you still use the Otologgers, correct? Yeah, it's basically the same brand that the city's using currently, and it's a new version that they have for long-term. It can be installed for 3 to 6 months at a time. And that was part of the reason why I had my sampling rate at 10 minutes. I can shorten my time that I have it in there. I've got 2 units that we rotate, so I can change our sampling rate to every 5 minutes. But it was a new and improved one that was supposed to have, like be able to remotely monitor while it was still in the wet well without opening. Well, the only problem is it says there's Wi-Fi signals interfere with the Bluetooth signal, and so there's too many Wi-Fi signals out there. I can't read it. I still have to open up the manhole and then download it the old-fashioned way. But no, I have been, because that was part of the consent order. We had purchased a couple of those data loggers, and so we've been continually monitoring. The city's allowed us to monitor in their manholes so we can keep track of it. So they either come out and help me, switch it out, or also when we've had our force main clean, because we started a program where every quarterly we're having our force main cleaned. We had cleanouts put in several years ago, and so 4 times a year I have Bob Frame Plumbing come out and jet our line from the lift station to the manhole. And then we also clean our lift station too to make sure there's no sediment in there. But yeah, we are trying to, figure out what's going on and head this thing off. But
Steve, is anybody else having these problems? I'm sorry, Steve Brown. You basically keep your eye on 3 locations, is that right? Cobus Creek's lift station, or force main?
Cobus, Ontua, Simonton, Walker Park. I thought there was another one.
And are they bumping up to this 50 as well?
Walker Park we're having issues with. Ontua's been in compliance, I think, for a good couple of years. I think they might have had one exceedance. Yeah, no other. Outside of Walker Park, we're not having any other issues with H2S in our system, or we're monitoring that.
I guess my questions would be, given that the H2S levels can vary based on the depth at which the reading is being taken, do we provide direction to these locations, I guess, that we're monitoring as to what our depth is? Is that readily known? And what our cycle of monitoring is so that they can be aligned with what we're reading?
No, we do not, but we can work with Simonton and Ontua moving forward, letting them know how we're the depth of level of our sensors and the intervals of monitoring. We can do that.
I think it might help to provide at least apples to apples kind of comparisons, and at a minimum, the entity that is responsible for their own self-monitoring is aware of how and when we're monitoring.
Sure. How?
Yeah, how? Yeah, in the intervals. Yeah.
As far as the level, I use the same attachment point, and in the manhole. There's an eye bolt underneath the manhole with a clevis on there, and my monitor and their data logger and my data logger are on the same point.
There's not a probe that goes off, it's just the data logger itself?
Yeah, it's a self-contained unit.
Okay, I don't need to see it.
Okay, I mean, I have a
Yeah.
picture of mine and the one that they use, but yeah, and they're basically the same size. I think the new one may be about an inch. You know, that might be the only difference is my sensor hangs down maybe an inch below theirs, but they're basically the same unit. One's just a new and improved one, but so I do, you know, have our data logger attached to the same point that Steve's guys put their data logger. So.
Could I glance at that? I've never seen Mike's.
I've been in the
He's
sewer
an
a
old
lot.
hat. He's been in the sewers. Okay. Oh, okay.
Steve, I get yelled at too all the time.
Okay, that's nothing new for me. No, there's in the, underneath the manhole, there's tabs that stick down, and holes were drilled into those for monitoring purposes. Well, then, to make things a little easier, when during the consent order, I put in a stainless steel bolt, eye bolt, in one of those holes. And so using a stainless steel clevis, we've been anchoring those to that point. So, but yeah, so, you know, but as far as our equipment's been running, you know, I've been, my pumping rates for my chemical feed stations have been the same as what they have been. Now, when we had the violation back in August, I had a failure at my primary chemical station, and that happened to be when they were testing, I happened to have the failure, and my station was down for, I think, 2 or 3 days. But since then, you know, I check them twice a week to make sure we don't have any issues with those. But
Okay. Anybody else wish to address the board? Thank you for coming in despite your surgery. I was a little confused by my message from one of your friends, and well, I guess I would just hope to figure out what this is. Maybe, well, I don't know what to say. There's violation. Steve, you got any more comments?
No, sir.
Good. I know that you're busy, but maybe the next time you go out, could you and Steve get together and, or your people and Steve Grubb get together and make sure the timing and everything's the same so we
Sure.
can make sure the two things we're comparing
Sure.
apples to apples?
Yep, we can do that.
Okay. Appreciate that. I mean, I've been working with these guys since they first came to town, the various different entities, and they certainly have tried hard to work with us on these issues. And geez, H2S wasn't even a problem 20 years ago. Well, maybe it was, but we didn't watch it. So, all righty. Other comments? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, guys.
Mr. President, I move that we amend the Bimbo Bakeries permit number 2006-03 penalty from $1,500 to $500 due to a calculation error.
Second.
Motion and a second.
Yes, on December 3rd, the Board of Works meeting, pretreatment, presented a FAR penalty for Bimbo Bakeries. based on their self-monitoring that they did in September, on September 5th, 2024. After further clarification of the definition of a daily max limit, pre-treatment recommends amending that penalty of $1,500 to $500.
Questions for Steve? All righty. Is anybody from Beambo here or online? Seeing none, back to the board. All those in favor of making this amendment to the Beambo Bakery's penalties signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Mr. President, I move that we amend the JBS Prepared Foods permit number 2002-01 penalty from $500 to $250 due to an error in calculation.
Motion and second. Steve, same error?
This is the same error, yes. Our new understanding of a daily max limit causes their penalty to be reduced.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Mr. President, I move that we find Winona Powder Coating Incorporated permit number 2003-02 in violation of their industrial wastewater discharge permit for failing to monitor cadmium, lead, silver, and cyanide and assign a penalty of $400.
Motion and a second. They skip the whole monitoring cycle?
Yes, they have a self-monitoring requirement to monitor specific parameters semi-annually. They fail to monitor those 4 parameters, and recommended penalty is $100 per parameter missed. The total recommended penalty is $400.
Have they said anything?
Yeah, they gave an explanation to their notice of violation. They had a personnel changeover, and it just got missed. So they took ownership of it.
Anyone from Winona Powder Coating present or online that wishes to address this or speak to the board? Seeing none, voting. All those in favor of this violation and penalty signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Mr. President, I move that we find Lippert Components plant number 58, permit number 2011-01 in violation of their industrial wastewater discharge permit limit for zinc and assign a penalty of $500.
Second.
Motion and a second. Steve, did they have any comments?
Yes, they did. This is actually their first discharge violation that they've ever had. They believe the reason is because they let the sludge build up at their end of process sampling point. So moving forward, they plan to pump this sampling point out on I can't remember how often, but they've got a routine down where they can keep this hopefully from happening again.
Okay. Anyone from Lippert present or online wish to address the board? Seeing none, all those in favor of this penalty signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Mr. President, I move that we find Elkhart Environmental Processing permit number 2002-02 in violation of their industrial wastewater discharge permit for failing to monitor arsenic, mercury, cyanide, silver, in total petroleum hydrocarbons, also known as TPH, and assign a penalty of $2,500.
Second.
Motion and a second. Same thing?
Yes, unfortunately, this is the second offense for Elkhart Environmental Processing. The penalty increases from $100 to $500 per parameter
Is it second offense this year? Or
within a year.
Within a year?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Any explanation? Do they got problem? Well, they have problems.
Right. The first one was due to, I believe, what did they say? Carelessness on their end. And the second offense is due to their contract lab. They're pointing a finger at their contract lab for this offense, so it's not.
Was this late or just totally missing?
Just totally missed it, yep.
Anybody from Elkhart Environmental Processing? This is the old, the facility on Oak Street, right?
That's correct, yep.
Anybody from Elkhart Environmental Processing present or online that wish to address the board? Seeing none, all those in favor of this violation and penalty signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Mr. President, I move that we ratify 2 driveway permits and 2 release of bonds as indicated in the packet.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Mr. President, I move that we grant permission to purchase a 2025 John Deere 644P four-wheel drive loader from Westside Tractor to replace an existing unit, allow for the trade-in of Unit 335, a 2012 Hyundai HL76-9 loader for a trade-in value of $28,000, and authorize the central garage to proceed with the purchase utilizing the Sourcewell purchasing cooperative program for a net price of $314,719.44.
Second.
Motion and a second. What do we got, Josh?
New loader for street department. Or the one that they have now it's pretty old. It's really worn out.
Budgeted?
Yes, it is budgeted, yeah. Yeah, and this kind of falls, just to give you some background stuff. So next year, EPA is coming out with new emission regulations, excuse me, for diesel engines, and we're just trying to purchase it before that happens. In 2007, when the EPA passed their mandates for the DPFs and other emission regulations that they had, the first 2 or 3 years of pretty much anything built diesel was a mess. And we're trying to get under that and not deal with that. So
Less learning curve.
yeah, pretty much.
All righty. All those in favor of approving this purchase signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Mr. President, I move that we allow for that we approve the purchase of a 2025 Manitou MT625 telehandler from Plevna Implement Company for a total purchase price of $84,000, less the trade-in of Unit 67612, a 2002 New Holland loader for $4,000, bringing the net purchase price to $80,000, utilizing the Sourcewell Cooperative Purchasing Program.
Motion and second. Same?
Not really. We have our New Holland loader. Unfortunately, it's so old that there's not many parts made for it anymore, and right now it needs an axle. And there is none. So we've been kind of limping it along for the last couple of years, but it's just getting to the point where it's very old. And my guys use it pretty much on a daily basis. So this would really help us a lot. Plus, our forklift that we normally use isn't really rated for our parking lot, which is dirt and mud and whatnot. They get stuck all the time. And this being more of an off-road kind of a thing, it would help
But
us
this isn't
greatly.
really you're trading in a loader. This is something different than just a standard loader, right? Steve,
Right.
I need to talk to you and Maggie after this. I'm sorry.
Right. It is a loader because you can change the buckets on it, you put forks on it, that kind of thing. It's pretty versatile.
And this is Central Garage uses it
Yes, sir.
normally.
Yep.
Okay.
Josh, just sidebar note, would Rotormill put down in your unpaid
We do have
services?
Rotomill on our-
Do you?
on our lot.
Okay, and it still gets stuck in that?
Yeah. Yeah, even the street department comes out every few months and smooths it out, and it still turns into the craters of the moon. Yeah.
All righty. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Mr. President, I move that we authorize the purchase of 2 tandem axle plow trucks for the street department from W.A. Jones utilizing Sourcewell Cooperative Contract for a total price of $643,150.
Second.
I don't get, I show 643,964.
Oh, yep. So
The memo doesn't match the back page. Back page says 643,150, and your memo says 643,964.
I'll amend my memo, my motion to be $643,964.
Second.
Need a second. Got a second. I'd like somebody to make a motion to amend pending clarification of the total contract price.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second on amendment. All those in favor of the amendment? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Amendment passes. All those in favor of the amended motion to approve the purchase of 2 tandem axle plow trucks for a total of $643,964, pending verification of that amount, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Same sign. Motion carries.
Mr. President, I move that we accept the following uniform conflicts of interest disclosure from Nancy Wilson, Thomas Schaaf, Michael Macklin, Gary Boyne, and Blaine LeClaire.
Second.
Oh, I shouldn't vote. Motion and a second. I will abstain. All those in favor signify.
Excuse me?
Oh,
I would, Maggie Marnoka.
sorry.
I am the attorney for the board. I do want to point out, first of all,
Are you going to fire me?
no.
Oh, okay.
As the board knows, this is simply a disclosure of a conflict of interest or a possible conflict of interest. It is not the board agreeing to waive such interest. And in fact, there is Gary Boyne, I guess, files one of these every year, but there is another partner at Warwick and Boyne that also should be doing that because he now also is working for redevelopment and, you know, to the tune of, I think Warwick and Boyne get a couple $100,000. It is Christopher Patras. Yep.
I guess
And
my question on Chris is,
he's a partner.
well, I understand that as to what is bringing about his conflict of interest, given that he's outside counsel for the commission, whereas Gary also serves as president of the Learner Governing Board and from time to time provides legal counsel to the board. And I guess what is defining the conflict between Christopher Potras with Warwick and Boyne versus any other outside legal counsel or professional service that we would have in place?
Warwick and Boyne are employed by the city as legal counsel to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars, and then one of their partner freely and openly and on multiple occasions takes an adverse, is hired by a client who takes an adverse interest in the city.
Okay.
Got it.
So,
That's, yeah.
and that's why I wanted
not
to
that they're an
clarify this,
employee.
because this is a question that I have every single year. So I don't see these conflict of interest forms. They don't ever come to me. So I don't even know how Gary states his, or Mr. Boyne states his conflict. But what I do know is Jim Woodsmall all the time represents clients whose interests are adverse to the city, and it's in a matter involving the city. So I just wanted to get that totally clarified.
Nancy, could you send a note to Gary and
His name's Christopher,
Chris.
and it's Potratz.
asking him to also provide a,
Okay.
thank you.
Thanks, Maggie.
Yep.
Maggie, I guess given the potential for adverse positions to the city, are there other professional services that we engage their firms with, like Barnes and Thornburg or otherwise, that we would have similar concerns with?
Not that I know of. Not that I know of.
If I may,
Yes.
being a
Go for it.
practicing city attorney, a lot of those firms,
Have firewalls, yeah.
well, and a lot of them also deal exclusively with municipal services, which tends to lead us away from conflict.
Correct.
Whereas the local companies do some municipal and some private, and then it's the private that, I may not be totally right, but that's what my recollection is with.
I agree with you. Yeah. Yep. Anyway.
All those in favor of accepting, did we already vote?
No.
No, you
No,
were
we did
going
vote.
to.
All right. All those in favor of accepting, placing on file these uniform conflict of interest disclosure statements signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 3-0.
One amendment, and with one abstention.
One abstention. Abstention.
Mr. President, I move that we approve the renewal, the lease renewal between the city and the Elkhart Art League through 2026.
Motion and a second.
Either Rose had been the
It's a standard agreement. Are they still in the
depot, yeah, with the Council on Aging. And so it doesn't appear that there's any changes to the existing agreement from what I can see.
No, it's just a requirement that they notify the city if they intend to stay.
Okay.
Right.
All righty. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Mr. President, I move that we approve the following use and event permits at the event committee's request. That would be for the Frosty 5K on February the 8th, 2025, to ratify the MLK March on January the 20th, 2025, Girls on the Run May 10th, 2025. The Mary Daly Dash and Block Party for May the 3rd, 2025. The Elkhart Police Department's 5K9 run on May the 17th, 2025. The National Day of Prayer for May the 1st, 2025. And Rebuilding the Altars of Prayer for June 29th, July 27th, August 24th, and September the 28th, 2025.
Second, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Public participation. Anyone wish to address the board in person? Anyone wish to address the board via WebEx? Seeing none, close public participation and
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
motion is second. We're adjourned.
Mike, I have a whole bunch for you.